Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm back today for another sick video, but it is what it is. I'm back for another eyeshadow palette review. So this is going to be a 1 week multiple look review, including a first impressions try on of the new Too Faced Born This Way Sunset Stripped Palette. Now this has been out for a couple of months now, but in Australia I think it's only been out for about a month-ish. So it's fairly new in Australia, and it's something that I really wanted to try out because I really like the original palette. This is one that came out a few years ago. It was one that survived my Too Faced eyeshadow palette declutter earlier this year. I really love how this works because I love the shimmers. Some of them are a little bit chunky and a little bit sheer, but they're really pretty, like twinkly, sparkly toppers. The mattes are quite nice and buttery, but I also like the variety of nudes in there, the depth and the split of the 50-50 matte and shimmer. They're sort of like things that tick a lot of boxes for me. My main criticism of this palette was that it was quite pink. There's quite a lot of pink tones in here, and even though like I can wear them, it's fine. Pink tones on my skin tone tend to look quite not vibrant pink, but they look a lot more pink than on other people. So instead of looking like you've got a nude pink, I look like I've got like a Barbie pink kind of effect. So pinks aren't my jam, but I really loved the golds and the browns. I love the sort of light sort of caramel shades. So this was always a palette that I have really enjoyed using. So when they brought out the second one, this is definitely something that piqued my interest. Comes in a box. It's got this like metallic shimmery silver packaging with like palm trees on it. It looks like a number plate, like the design. I don't really like the design. I think it looks a little bit tacky, but that's my opinion. So on the back, it has a bit of information. It's saying that it's inspired by the warm, sultry, sexy, sun-kissed skin of beach babes frolicking in the surf and sand of Malibu. These 16 rich, creamy, highly pigmented modern nudes range from flattering to sultry, matte, metallic shimmer and sparkly shades. So from the description, it sounds like it's going to be a warmer palette. This definitely does look a lot more warm toned. There's a lot more sort of coppery tones in it. These sort of light shades look a little bit less neutral and a little bit more sandy. So it's definitely getting a little bit more warm. So you can see this working on like tanned skin, for example. It does look like there's a black and a white, but it's really not. It's more like a really dark brown, like a coffee bean sort of dark brown, and then like a shimmery sand color essentially. So I feel like that's going to be a way to really make a look dramatic. You can either go nude, 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 or you can really deepen it and really add quite a nice twinkle. It does also look like there's different formulas here. So whereas in the last one it seemed to be the matte and the shimmer was quite sparkly in all shades. Depending on the shade you went for, some were a lot sheerer, some were a lot more sort of pigmented. This looks like there are some distinct formulas here. I'm seeing these light ones. They almost have this, they look quite flat and smooth in the pan, and they've got this iridescent twinkle to them. So I feel like these are going to be something that we haven't seen in the past palette. So I am definitely interested in seeing what the different finishes are like in this new palette, but I'm mainly excited for the color story because this color story is something I reach for a lot more often than those sort of champagne-y, nudie pinks. I much prefer sandy, mid-toned browns and to deepen a little bit with like a dark brown. So this palette really speaks to me, but compared to the last one, it does look like there's some overlap. I kind of look like I'm holding up the same palette. Hopefully not. I will probably do some swatches. I think what's throwing this off as well is this has black packaging, which makes the shades pop a little bit more. This has brown packaging that makes it look really dull. But yeah, you can see the format is the same. There are differences, but we'll see how different they are, shall we? So I bought my palette from Mecca, but I will link a few places in the description box if you're interested in checking this out. Of course, the price is going to vary from country to country, and where you're going to get it depends on where you live. So I'll try to list a few places, but you might have to do your own research if you're interested in this. Essentially what I like to do with these reviews is, and I'll have timestamps so you can jump around if you wanted to, but I'm going to do swatches of these. I will do swatches compared to the first one because there are similarities. Let's see how different they are on my arm. Then I'll apply it to my eyes so you can see how it applies and my first impressions of what I think about the formula. And then I'll check back throughout the week maybe like 4 or 5 different looks, trying to use all the shades available. And then once I've done that and I've got a good idea of what I think about the formula and the shades and the palette overall, I'll conclude what I think about this at the end. So that's the first 2 shades. You can see that that shimmery shade, Shall We Dance, is very sheer but has a pink subtle twinkle to it. So it's very different from what we've seen before. Then we've got Suns Out and Nude Beach. This is like my traditional sort of everyday look. So it's like a warm brown, bronzy kind of duo, which is really pretty. Sun Chaser is slightly deeper. It looks very similar though. They do not need both of those in one palette. And Surfboard is this beautiful sort of mauve color with, I'll build it up slightly so hopefully you can see, but it's quite a subtle shimmer, but it's got this mauve base and this beautiful sort of champagne gold shimmer to it. I'll zoom in and show you soon, but that one is very, very pretty. Shell Yeah is another one of those sort of iridescent twinkly topper shades that have like a sheer base, but this one's got more of a peachy sheen rather than a pinky sheen. And then we've also got Butter Pecan, which is more of a peachy sort of transition shade. So it's, yeah, it almost looks like if you mixed that one with one of those, you'd get almost that. So we're seeing a bit of redundancy here. All right, I'm not going to be able to swatch them all in one arm's length. So this is the first 8. We can see there are different formulas in there, things we haven't sort of seen before, but there's also your traditional sort of metallic and also matte, but there is a bit of redundancy here. So we've got Golden Hour, which is a rosy matte for some reason. Swatches beautifully though, and it looks quite peachy on the skin, but it's also got rosy tones to it. Don't know if this needs to be brightened a bit. And then Hey Honey, which is a warm orangey, oh, that's really metallic. That's different from the other metallics that we've seen or shimmers that we've seen. This is a lot smoother. It's very, very orange. Then we've got So Hot, which is this rosy sort of almost, it's got burgundy tones to it, but it's definitely like a dark rosy shade. It would pair beautifully with that one there. And then also Chai Times, which is, again, a dark sort of burgundy matte that actually swatches really nicely. The light keeps disappearing on me, so let's chase it. Cocoa Glow is a dark chocolate brown, so it swatches nicely as well. You can see it's much more brown toned, and this is much more red toned. And we've got Bonfire Babes, which is like a metallic brown. This is gorgeous. I love these shades as well. Really dark, beautiful bronze. Love, love, love. And last 2 shades, we've got Sandy Cheeks, which is also one of those iridescent shades, but this almost has like a sandy base to it and a green shift. So it's not translucent with a shift. It's got a sandy base, so it's a little bit deeper. And then we've also got this really blackened, this is called Black Sand. It's not quite a black, it's a blackened brown. But you can see it's a lot deeper and more cool toned than the last dark brown. So that is the deeper 8 shades. All right, here is a comparison of the new palette, which is on the top, versus the old palette, which is on the bottom. Now, there are some similarities. Like, I think when you look around here, there's like a copper, a dark rose, a dark rose. The browns start looking quite similar. But in terms of overall vibe, there is a lot more rosiness in the bottom palette and a lot more lighter, like frosty shades. In the top one, there's a lot more sandy nudes, but it does also go into some peachiness here, whereas you can see there's a lot more dusty sort of mauve colors in the bottom row. So look, do they look similar? Well, they're all sort of nude shades, so yeah. But there are differences, and even though some sort of overlap, mainly, like I said, those 4 there, you are getting a different sort of color vibe. Also, there's less chunkiness. I found down here some of these lighter shades are quite chunky, whereas these are smoother, but they're a lot more sheer. There's one, that sort of purpley color that looks like almost duochrome, so it looks more purple to gold, which is really pretty. So they are playing a little bit more with different textures, but overall, yeah, we probably don't need them both. I would say pick one colour story you like the most, but that's the differences there. All right, I'm going to start by putting some Urban Decay Primer Potion on my eyes just to prime this. I do know that with some of the last shimmers, if you want them really intense, putting them over a really sticky base like a glitter glue, and the Too Faced glitter glue is amazing. That works a treat at really amplifying the look. So if I need to do that in any of these looks, I will do that for you. But I do want to start with a pretty standard primer, and this is just what I'm panning, so that's why I'm using this one. All right, just with an Ella Cosmetics E19 brush, I'm just going to set my base with High Tide. I do quite like that there's not a really, really off-white shade in here, like a cream. This is more of a sandy shade. I feel like those shades are useless for a whole range of skin tones. And all they really much do is set the base for people with really, really fair skin. I'm just going to turn that brightness down. The sun's coming out. So I feel like even though this is going to be too light for a lot of people, I think it's a better shade, and it does work really nicely at setting the base, even though it's a little bit warmer than my skin. I think it works really well. All right, with a flat concealer brush from Quartz Beauty, I'm going to go in with the shade Shall We Dance. I'm really curious about this formula. It doesn't really seem to pick up super well in the brush, like it's really firm in the pan, but I want to see how it applies just to a normal primer. It doesn't apply very well. Oh my god, I think this might be a situation where we need to use fingers. It's very twinkly, but very, very subtle. I don't even know if you can see it on there, but it's very, very subtle. I'm worried that if I agitate the pan too much, I'm actually going to ruin the pan a little bit. I don't get this. I'm going to use my finger. Before I use my finger to apply that, I'm going to get a Refa brush. This is the 28, and just see if a different brush picks it up a bit better. Oh, I still can't see anything. To be fair, it's a very translucent shade, so it doesn't really show up on a brush, but this picks it up a bit better, to be fair. But it is a very subtle, twinkly shade. I don't think it's supposed to be a bold, pigmented. What does the packaging say? It does actually say that highly pigmented modern nudes range from flattering to sultry matte, metallic, shimmer and sparkle shades. For looks so naturally alluring, you'll think you were born in LA. I don't want to be born in LA, thank you very much. But I wouldn't call that pigmented. I would call that very, very sheer. I want to try that with glitter glue. But what I want to do first is pick up the shade Surfboard with the same brush. I just want to see that picks up a lot better. And I just want to see how these basic sort of shimmers work on a normal eyeshadow primer before I pull out the glitter glue. This is very pretty, and I love this shade. It's like a lilac with a cool gold shift. It's very, very pretty. This is one I could wear every day, like just one and done eyeshadow shade. Love this shade. Look at it, beautiful. I think I actually had, I want to say, a MAC eyeshadow like this back in the day, like 15, 20 years ago, and I loved it and used it up, and then I think it was discontinued, but it was like a shade I used every single day, and I can understand why. It's very, very pretty, and this is how the sort of shimmers of the other palette perform. They're not really, really opaque and bold, but they give a really beautiful effect, which complements these sort of nude sort of palettes. So what I'm going to do is finish the look and then go in with some glitter glue in the inner corner and see if those twinkly, toppery kind of shades stick really well and pop on a stickier base. All right, I've just wiped off that Ella Cosmetics E19 brush. I'm going in with Sun Chaser just because that's the matte that's sort of paired with this shade, and I do like the pairings. I think if you're not very good at pairing eyeshadow colors, I feel like these sort of palettes really help you out. Of course, you can jump around and mix and match. I feel like all the shades sort of complement each other. But if you are really a beginner and you really don't know how to pair a matte and a shimmer, these make it so easy. I'm starting quite soft. I'm seeing a little bit, just a little bit of patchiness there, which I'm not in love with, especially since I set my base. It shouldn't really be patchy. I like the shade. I like the amount of pigmentation there. There's just a little bit of patchiness that I sort of don't expect from this palette. because I liked the other one. And I'm just going to get a clean fluffy brush. This is the E21 from Ella Cosmetics, and I'm just going to blend the edges of that a little bit. I do have to say though that with this palette, so I'll have a photo of it on the screen, the shade that I picked up, which is the pairing to this sort of beautiful twinkly mauvey gold color, even though this matte does work well at adding a bit of a shadow to the look, I have to say that it looks very, very similar to this shade here. And I think for versatility, just off the bat, having a mauve that matches that would have just added a bit more variety to the look, because these, to me, like, there are differences. One's lighter, one's deeper, but I feel like on the eye you can get a very similar effect with them, but we'll play with that a bit later. So yeah, if that was just a, I don't know, like a warm mauve, I think that would have been a lot better. And while I'm talking about the similarities of the two, I'm actually going to pick up the other shade. So this is Nude Beach. I've got a little brush. This is an E26 from Ella Cosmetics. And I'm just running it under the eye for a little bit of definition. But I'm still keeping it quite simple and quite nude. But I'm going to try to pack on that shimmer to see how that shimmer applies. Again, this sort of looks, the colour, it looks like I've just picked up the same shade. So straight away there's a bit of redundancy that is unnecessary. Like, can you tell the difference between the lower lash line and the crease? I can't. So back with the glitter glue, and this product, the e.l.f. glitter glue, is it e.l.f.? I think it's e.l.f. glitter glue, is almost as good. This is slightly better in my opinion, but they both do excellent things. So all I'm doing is squeezing out a little bit on the back of my hand. This has not been used for a while, so it's separated a little bit, but that's all right. And this will just intensify whatever you put on top of it. Just be careful, like, you can put it all over the lid, definitely, but it does grip mattes in a funny way because it is so sticky. So I would recommend just putting this exactly where you want your shimmer. So I'm using a brush to apply this, and I'm putting it mainly, maybe like in the inner third, because I want to really see this shimmer. And I'll do it on the lower lash line, just on the inner portion of the lower lash line, so we can really see that shimmer, hopefully to its full potential. All right, with that same Refa brush, we're trying Shall We Dance again. Picking it up and putting it onto the glitter glue. Whoa, look at the difference that makes. I'm going to turn the brightness down just so you can see this a little bit better. But this, the difference between applying it on normal primer and on glitter glue is night and day. Should you need glitter glue to get this effect from this eyeshadow? I don't think so. I feel like it should be this sort of effect. I'll turn the brightness up a bit more. Should be this sort of effect just putting it on a normal primer, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. But I do think this is also overtaken a little bit of Surfboard, which I actually like the shade a lot better. So I'm going back in with Surfboard, just sort of layering that over the top a little bit. I think that sort of cool gold shimmer is really, really stunning, but I want, oh, and you can see like picking up where the glitter glue slightly is. It's just like intensifying extremely. So yeah, if you want really bold eyeshadow looks, a glitter glue does help a lot. All right, I'm going to keep this look pretty simple, but I'm going to check back in throughout the week with bolder looks using bolder colors. So I'm just going to finish this off with some mascara. This is the MAC Stack mascara. I don't love this mascara. I'm trying to use it up and then I can back to MAC it. It's fine. You just need to take off a lot of excess off your brush. Like literally, I've just scraped a lot off my hand, on my hand, just to stop it from clumping up. So it's supposed to be a non-clumping mascara, but I strongly disagree with those claims. It clumps quite a lot. All right, so that's a look for today. It's very, very simple. I might actually demonstrate a bolder look on camera because usually I just check in and show you what I've created, but I might actually do a bolder look on camera because I know that this is very, very sort of subtle and very simple, but I really wanted to play with those sparkly shimmers and see how they actually work. And I'm not going to say I'm super in love with them, but I actually think the lid shade was the winner here. I think that applied a lot nicer, and I think it gives a nicer effect. But I think this is also very nice. I feel like I'm like going to a fairy party or something, and I've got this sort of pink, iridescent pink shimmer and this beautiful sort of mauvey, goldy twinkle on the eye. That mauvey gold twinkle is very, very pretty. So yeah, that's the first look. All right, we're back today with look number 2, and I'm not super in love with this palette so far. I tried to use, okay, so what I used all over the lid and into the crease, I used this pinky color here. So that's the predominant look. Then I took this sort of burgundy wine tone, which is Chai Times, and I put it in the crease. And I wanted to be distinct from the eyelid. I wanted the eyelid to be that sort of soft pink, and I wanted a crease color to be a little bit more bold. And then I put it in the outer corner as well, and I ran them both on the lower lash line. Now, the reason I did that was because I wanted a matte base, and I wanted to see how these sparkly textures lay over a matte base. I can tell you they didn't. So I started with Sandy Cheeks. I thought that was a cool color. It's got that sort of sandy base with that sort of green shift to it. I thought that might be pretty, and I tapped it on the middle of the eye. I just wanted to be like on the center of the eye. Really didn't show up much at all. And then I tried to do the same thing with Chalier, which is that peachy shade. So it's got the sort of iridescent peachy shift and a sort of translucent base. I thought maybe that'd be beautiful, just like a twinkle over a matte. It didn't really work. So I'll zoom in and show you how the look turned out. But yeah, it effectively looks like I've just used matte. So, so far I'm not loving those iridescent shimmery shades. And look, I understand it's a new formula, and I understand that there's ways to use it, but when you're testing out a new formula that maybe will be hard to get like on the eye effectively, don't put 3 pans. Like 3 pans is too much. Now I feel like I've taken away a lot. I like to use shimmer predominantly. Now I'm limited to only 5 shimmers because those iridescent ones aren't great. All right, so here's a look. I've got that pink all over the lid. I've got that wine tone in the crease and in the outer corner, and they both blended on the lower lash line. Can you see the shimmer that I dotted on the center of the lid? Not really. Like if you and that's 2 layers, mind you, because that's that sort of sandy tone and then that peachy tone built up with my finger. My mascara is wreaking havoc today as well. It's just not doing anything. Yeah, it's sort of just migrated a little bit up onto my lid, so it looks a bit shiny up there. But in terms of shimmer on the lid, it is very sad and lackluster. So these aren't twinkly shades that you can apply as toppers, unless you then put extra glitter glue or primer directly onto your lid. They're quite disappointing. All right, this is sort of look number 3, but I'm gonna try to adapt this later on. It's like 9 AM, I'm about to take my kid to a gym class, throw on a little bit of makeup. This is the sort of look that I throw on a daily basis, but I did use this. Firstly, I put this in the crease. It was a little bit dark, so I mixed it a little bit with this sort of peachier shade, put the peachier shade on the lower lash line, and then I wanted to use this shade on Urban Decay Primer Potion, so that's what's on the lid. It is so dull and so goddamn frustratingly boring. I also think it's getting a little bit of hard pan on it, so I'll zoom in and show you that in a second. These shades are really starting to frustrate me. I'm mainly focusing on that new formula because I want to wrap my head around what I think about it. I also put it on with a brush, but also on with my finger, and I think that's also where I'm getting the hard pan. Any sort of moisture or oils or lotions or anything you might have on your hands can seal up the pan, so I'll try to fix that. But yeah, even with my finger, I couldn't get this to look like it's actually anything on my eyes. So I'm not sure if you can see that there's a little bit of like darkening and what looks like maybe hardening of the pan. So yeah, it is starting to get a little bit of hard pan. But here's a look. So the mattes are definitely showing up, which is good. They're coming to the party. I didn't blend them super well. But the shimmer, even packed on with my finger, look how dull that is. Like I literally was like pat, 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 pat. And it's just this really light, very, very subtle sheen, which yes, that's pretty on a daily basis. But that shouldn't be what it's like when you build it up. That's what it should be like when you sheer it out with like a fluffy brush or something, or apply it really, really lightly. Packed on with your finger, this should look a lot better than that. That is almost shameful. So what I'm going to do later is come back and try to build on this and play with some more glitter glues, play with some more stuff, and try to get this look to look a little bit more impactful and bold. All right, let's try to fix this situation with some glitter glue. So I'm just going to put this all on my eyelids. I'm going to try to avoid the crease because it can get a little bit patchy in the crease, but I really want something more on the lid. When I do swirl my brush or rub my brush on that, it does sort of come off in sort of chunks. You can sort of see there's little dents in there. I think that's just the hard pan coming off. So it's not a hard pan that's going to ruin your ability to pick it up, but it's just going to make it a bit messier. But I feel like this shade is messy in general. Okay, so we've got some glitter glue. Let's see how different this looks on the eye. It's still not that impressive. It's like I would say that this reminds me a lot of some of those green shifting highlighters that were out a couple of years ago, where they've got like a nude or beige sort of base and then a slight green shimmer to them. That's the effect this gives, and I don't think it's that impressive. I really don't think it's worth dealing with hard pan or glitter glue. It's really not that impactful. This is how it should be applying, just on your lid with a normal primer, or even just your bare skin, because that just looks like a shimmer. I don't know if you can see those gouges taken out, but that's literally how it's coming off because of the hard pan. So I'm not liking this new formula. Whatever, I'm going to finish this off. I'm going to go in with the shade So So Hot, which is like a rosy shimmer. These apply so much better than those damn iridescent-y topper shades. This is a really beautiful sort of rosy shimmery shade. They should have all been this formula, to be fair, which is essentially what the first palette was. Just running that on the outer corner of the lower lash line as well, just to sort of even out the top and the bottom. Just going in with a little bit of Cocoa Glow, which is the second darkest matte brown, just to sort of deepen the socket a little bit. The mattes are fine. The mattes aren't anything to like write home about. Yeah, I'd say, look, the matte formula is fine. It's not the best in the world. It definitely shows up. It does require a little bit of blending to make it look even. So yeah, they're not as sort of smooth and buttery as I would usually like a matte to be, but they're workable and they show up and they look nice. And this shimmery formula is really pretty. It's that iridescent topper, that new formula that is not great. And I've just added a little bit of mascara just to add a little bit more volume to balance it out again. But that is sort of look 3 part 2, if that makes sense. So it's just showing that you can build it up and make it look a little bit more bold. But ultimately I was just trying to play with this shade and see what I think about it, and the answer is it's not great. All right, I'm back with look number 4. There are plumbers cleaning out drains outside my window, but luckily this is just going to be quick. I like this look. I'm happy with this look. This is a very me look. I decided to stay away from those topper shades because they're infuriating me. So instead I went for this all over the lid over just basic primer, blended it out with that shade. I put some pencil brown liner on my top lash line and also my waterline, but I set on the top lash line with this dark shade here. So I've used that to sort of deepen the liner and blend it out a little bit. So very, very, very simple. This is exactly what I'd do on a daily basis. And I love this shade. It's like a really, really beautiful sort of light bronze shade. It's like my one and done sort of eyeshadow shade. So if I had to just pick like a duo of eyeshadows that I'd use every single day, it'd probably be like those two. So this is just an example of the shades I like to reach for on a daily basis, and shades that aren't annoying me at the moment. All right, so really, really basic, but you can see that that shimmer applied really easily. I didn't need to build it up. I didn't need to apply it with my finger. I put some of the matte on the lower lash line. Yeah, just a basic, simple, easy look. Happy with this. All right, another look using this palette. I like the tone. It's matching everything that's going on today. But I think this might be my second last look because I know exactly how I feel about this palette. On my eyes today, I'm using that sort of coppery orange shade on the inner half and also on the lower lash line, and I'm using the dark shimmery brown on the outer corner, and then I blended it all out with that sort of peachy shade. So that's in the outer corner and into the crease, and then I've also taken the dark brown on the lower lash line, in the outer corner, and as a winged liner today. So this actually does perform quite nicely as a liner. You can see it gives enough color. I didn't have to wet my brush. It was just an angle brush, easy to do. And it is a nice sort of smoking out look where it's not too dark, it's not black, but it does add depth to a look, which is nice. So I'll zoom in. So just on a normal primer with just a normal brush, there was no like wetting of the brush, there was no finger application. You can see that sort of coppery shade applies quite nicely. You're sort of losing the dark brown shimmer. You can sort of just see the tone difference. Looks a little bit more cooler toned, less copper and more sort of bronze. And then you've got that dark brown as a wing, and also like blending out the lash line. Yeah, I like this look. It's fine. I feel like I could probably create this look with the last palette. The tones would be slightly different, but the effect I think would be quite similar. So yeah, I'm starting to feel like there's a bit of overlap, and the same kind of vibes happening. All right, this is going to be my second last look using this palette. It was going to be my last, but I thought, no, I want to end this on a high note, whereas this is not bad, but it is a bit of a low note. I actually filmed it after doing my first look in this video, and it was when I used this shade, and I think it was that shade, and I was like, it's actually really pretty with glitter glue. I want to give these glittery topper shades another go. So I put glitter glue all over my eye today. I wanted to use this one again, and I've decided this should just be a regular shimmer. Like, let's put it out there. I was trying to find my MAC Old Gold pigment. I used to have it, maybe I decluttered it, but I'll put a swatch of Old Gold on the screen. It very much gives that effect, but the pigment is just so much easier to use, much more opaque, and doesn't require glitter glue to show up. So this is not actually a very unique color, and it's not worth, in my opinion, the hassle of having to layer glitter glue and then this on top just to get a shimmery effect. So that's on the majority of the lid. But then I thought, look, I've got glitter glue on, I'm here, I'm trying to play with the glittery shades or the toppery shades. So I went in with that sort of peachy shade and put that on the inner portion of the lid. Look, it doesn't, I think it lifted the look slightly, but again, nothing amazing. And then I just essentially used this sort of peachy nude shade and this sort of brown matte to finish off the look. So yeah, I've tried those topper shimmer shades, and I think I've had enough of them. I do think at times they can be pretty, but I really don't think they're worth the hassle. Oh yeah, I also blended out my liner with a mix of those two shades. I think those are really pretty dark browns. They work really nicely as liners, to blend out liners, to deepen looks. So I do think there are some nice staple shades in here. It's just that stupid new formula that I think is letting the team down. All right, so hopefully all over the lid you can see that sort of green shifty brown shade. It's really basic. The fact that I had to use glitter glue to get that effect is, in my opinion, quite unforgivable, because this is the effect of a basic shimmer or a basic pigment. And even like this pan, like I've showed it before, it's like jacked up. It's really like there's gouges taken out of it. Looks like there's a bit of hard pan forming. It does not need to be this hard. That's all I'm saying. All right, we're back for the last look, and look, I wanted this to be something I was like, wow, this is a highlight of this video, and it's not. I used shades I really liked, so there's that, and they applied fine for the most part. I mainly use this shade sort of on the inner half. I used a bit of that shade on the outer half, but because this has that sort of same sheen to it, so it's like a purpley shade with that same sort of light goldy bronze shimmer to it, it sort of blended it all into one anyway. So I thought I'd just add more, as you do. Then I put this shade just in the outer corner just to add a little bit more tones to it, I don't know. And pretty much that and that are on the lower lash line as well. And then I thought I'd use this burgundy shade as a liner, and it didn't work out very well. Firstly, it's not as pigmented to get like a bold liner effect. The darker shade is. This one I sort of had to build up, and I thought, oh, bugger it, I'm going to use it wet. You can see on the pan, there's a little bit of hard pan, but I think that's easy to remove. And I found that when you wet it, which you'll be able to see, I'll show you close up that pan in a second, it actually turns more brown than a reddy color. So sort of muted the effect I was going for. But I also put a little bit more of that shade in the outer corner as well. So that's where that sort of like berry outer corner action's going. But the liner was a bit of a fail. The rest of it's fine. It's not too, looks a little bit muddled together because I feel like the shades I picked were sort of too similar. You can't see them distinctly. It's fine. It's nothing amazing. Close up, it just looks, again, like I sort of used one shimmer all over the lid and used that sort of berry shade, that matte in the outer corner, and as the liner color, and probably could easily get the same effect by doing that. So I think I just made it a little bit too complicated. The look's fine. It's just not wow. And here's the pan. So you can see how it almost turns almost like one of these sort of colors, like a dark brown when you add water to it. That was just because I had a wet brush, and you know, I'm not too fast. I think that comes off quite easily. So there you go. It's coming off as I'm talking. So it hasn't ruined the pan, which is great, but it does temporarily seal the pan. And using it wet changes the color significantly. So if you want a burgundy liner, I wouldn't use that wet because you end up getting what looks like a dark brown anyway. And what I ended up having to do, so you can see there's parts that look quite dark brown. I had to sort of layer over more of the dry eyeshadow to bring back that burgundy shade. It just made it a little bit like messy and a little bit fussy and way too much effort for the outcome, but that's what it is. All right, conclusion time. What do I think about the Born This Way Sunset Stripped Palette by Too Faced. Oh my God, it's Sunday morning. I don't know what's going on. I don't like it. That's going to be my conclusion. I'll give you pros and cons. I will talk a little bit more about it, but too long, didn't read. I'm not a fan. I probably wouldn't spend my money on it. I have actually been looking online, and where you buy this in Australia, Mecca, they have a lot of like 5-star reviews. So people may be seeing things that I'm not seeing. So if you have this and you love it, no offense, it just doesn't live up to the hype of the first one, in my opinion. And when I say hype, I mean my own hype. I'm not saying that the community particularly hyped this up so much, because I don't think they did. But there were a few people that really, really enjoyed it, and I was one of them. And I feel like this is a far superior palette than this one, even though the tones of this generally I would reach for over these sort of more mauvey pink shades. I just feel like the formula is a lot more consistent with this one. And yeah, I think the thing that lets this down a lot are those 3 topper shimmer shades that I never really got to work effectively. There were a couple of days where I took this to my mum's house. I didn't film because I didn't have my camera, but I did use like this sort of shade on a firmer sort of fluffier brush, and it did pick up okay, but the effect was still very, very, very lackluster and minimal, and just wasn't really worth the effort. So I just feel like these topper shades, the new formulas, they sort of, I don't know, they could have added something really, really amazing and wow, and what they did was just disappoint me. And also because they are the only sort of highlight shades, I can't really, this is not a complete palette for me. So you do have some of the lighter mattes, you have transition shades, you have deeper shades, you've got sort of mid-toned and darker shimmers, but when it comes to wanting a pop of highlight or just a light sort of shimmery look on the eye, I just can't get it with these shades, and it sort of leaves me wanting more. And even though there's no overlaps in terms of the same shades, I still feel like you can get very similar effects using each palette. So for example, if I wanted to use something a little bit more unique here, so let's say So Hot and Chai Time. So that's a nice sort of berry shimmer matte combo. So I'll just put those here. Even though they aren't dupes, you can still go Sparkling Rum here, and because Cocoa is a little bit more mauvey toned, the color stories are similar. So that's the new one, that's the old one. This is more of a coppery, orangey, shimmery shade from the new one, so that's a little bit more unique. But you also have Golden Light from the old one. So again, they're not the same and they are different. So old one, new one. I think that's the way it was. But on the lid, it will give a very similar effect. So they look different. There's nuances that are different, but overall you can sort of get a similar vibe using your original palette if you've got it. In the intro to this video, I talk about this having more sandy tones, which it does have. And I do like these sort of caramel brown transition shades, but again, there's too many of them. They're redundant. They should have had something more like this mauvey shade to complement that purpley shade, that surfboard shade. But if you did want to create a shade like this, firstly, the shade Nude is like just a cooler tone version, so they're similar enough. New palette, old palette, that's a little bit more rosy, that's a little bit more sandy, but if you took a tiny bit of this maple shade, which is an orangey shade, and added it to that, you can actually get effectively a very similar color. So if you just do a little bit of mixing and matching, you can get similar tones and similar effects. So I don't see why this was necessary. If this palette had really amazing new shimmery shades, so if those three sort of topper sparkly shades were really easy to use, gave a really beautiful, impactful look, and really added a different dimension to this palette, I would say these are different enough that you know, if you wanted them both, sure, or, you know, maybe if you wanted more variety with texture, go for this one. But because the formula is so disappointing and in my opinion, not worth the hassle of even trying to make work, they're just better to ignore them. Because of that, I think the rest just feels redundant to the past palette. Another thing that makes me realize how much I dislike this palette was last night I went to my grandfather's 90th birthday and I was like, do I wear one of these sparkly pretty shades? And I didn't want to. Instead, I went for the Glaminatrix palette. This is the Nearly Natural palette. I did a review on this recently. It's a really, really, really beautiful sort of nearly nude palette, and it's actually in Australia cheaper than this. This is $78. This is $70. The main difference is you got to buy this pre-order. You got to wait a few weeks. There's not the instant gratification that you can get going to the shops and buying this. But like if I compare the shimmers, let's go a light shimmer because that's what we've been sort of talking about. And I'll also use a peachy shimmer to give a good example because I know there's a peachy shimmer in here. These are phenomenal. These do not need glitter glue. They don't even need primer. If you just want to put this on your eye, you can do that. These ones are absolutely gross compared to it. They're chunky. They don't give a beautiful effect. So I'm going to have Shall We Dance and Shall Yeah. But look at the difference. Look at the shine versus the chunk. Like it's just not nice. Put it on the back of my hand. This is Too Faced. Yeah, yuck. And this is Glaminatrix. You're gorgeous. Yuck and gorgeous. We've got Too Faced. This is more the peachy one. If you can see it, I'll zoom in as well. And this is Glaminatrix. You're absolutely like chalk and cheese. Too Faced, Glaminatrix, Glaminatrix. I know which one I'm going to reach for, and I know which one just consistently gives a more beautiful effect. It's Glaminatrix. Another quick comparison of a deeper shade. I've got So So Hot from Too Faced, which is a nicer shimmer compared to their topper shades. But this is Raw from Glaminatrix. Look at the difference. Like, yeah, the color's slightly different, but this just gives such a more beautiful effect. I just don't, it just isn't worth the money in my opinion. So I think what I'm trying to say is if you're going to bring out a new palette and you're going to have a new formula that you're claiming is high pigment, blah, 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 you actually need to make it better than other things on the market or as good as other things on the market. This is subpar. It's not even as good as the original palette in my opinion. I think these mattes blend a bit nicer. They do have some chunkier, lighter shimmers, so maybe they were trying to improve on the lighter shimmer formula because the feedback was probably the light ones are a little bit chunky, but at least you can smooth them on and get a beautiful effect. These are just like nothing. They barely apply on the eye, and to me they're fairly useless. So yeah, if you can't even top your original formula, and you can definitely not top other things that are on the market in a similar price bracket, I don't get what this is. Yeah, I wanted to love this. I wanted to love the color story. So this is not a bad palette per se. Like you can get nice looks. I will continue to use it. I will continue to mainly use like these shades here. just because these are sort of like really good everyday shades for me. But I just feel like out of the nude palettes that I've been trying recently, this is, it's disappointing. And yeah, I loved this. So I had a lot of high expectations, and maybe that was also my problem. But if I could get my money back, I would probably want to do that. I think the destiny of this, it's not going to be decluttered. It's not that bad. But I will probably target this for next year to maybe see how much of it I can pan in 6 months. I don't want to do a year-long pan that palette. So I might just, you know, if I can pan my favorite shades, then I'll get rid of this palette because it's usable. And there's a few shades in there that I really like for a daily look. But overall, for the price of this, it is just... they could have done so much better. They could have done so much better. But yeah, for now, I'm going to put this away. I'm going to bring it back out probably in my project pan next year. That can be next year's problem. And there is no foreseeable time where I would reach for that over like one of these. These are just way better. And that one didn't need to be a thing. So if you were interested in this palette, like, look, my recommendation would be to swatch it in store. Find out if those 3 new formula shades are something that you like the look of and feel like you can either use effectively, or you won't be disappointed knowing that they're not that great. Like, go into it knowing that like 3 of the shades are pretty much really average formula and you probably won't use them too much. So yeah, just buy this with a little bit more research and a little bit more testing and touching and looking for sales, because full priced, buying it like blindly online, I am genuinely very disappointed. So that's my tips for you. If you love it, that's cool. I know a lot of people are loving this. For me, it's a big... let me know if you've tried it or you've seen it in store, what you think about it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.